Welcome to Museum After Hours at Worcester City Art Gallery and Museum. Tonight we're getting spooky and cracking open the spirits. We're also looking forward to some fantastic retro music, cocktail making with wonderful Tonic Bar, and a special Halloween guest performance in our Victorian chemist shop. Hope you enjoy it. First up, grab your cocktail shaker and let's make your first cocktail for the evening. Here's what you'll need.
Hi, I'm Tom from Tonic and we're going to be taking you through a Corpse Reviver No.2 today. First of all, we're going to be chilling our glass, as it isn't served over ice, so we want to make sure our glass is completely chilled when we serve this drink. So the Corpse Reviver No.2, funny enough, is a hangover cure, and they said if you had four of them, you would revive yourself from the corpse. This is going to have dry gin in it, orange liqueur, triple sec otherwise, or Lillet Blanc. You can use dry vermouth if you prefer. We're also going to have lemon juice and a little bit of absinthe, but we'll get to that in the end. So this is all equal parts. We're going to be doing 30 mils of each, so fill with 25 mil and add a little touch in extra. 30 mil of our orange liqueur, a little touch extra, and then we're going to be using the dry vermouth or Lillet Blanc as it is preferred. The same with the lemon juice as well, so it's not too complicated, it's real quick and simple. And then we're going to fill this up with ice and shake it, get it down to our right temperature and the dilution that is needed in it. We're going to have a quick taste test just to make sure that we've got all the specs right. And the thing that really makes this drink is the absinthe. So you'd usually do a ice wash. We like to use an atomizer in here. It's a little bit more controlled and you make sure you're not adding too much of a very strong spirit into something. So we're just going to spray the glass 3 times. And this way we don't have to chuck the excess out and we're not adding far too much that's going to unbalance the drink either. We're going to get a double strain, so Hawthorns and our fine tea strainer over the top, because we don't want any other ice shards in there. It's quite a full drink as you can see, and we're going to garnish it off with a nice spritz of lemon. Rub that around the glass, get all the oils exposed and around there for flavour and aroma. Nice twist, and there we have it, a Corpse Reviver No.2.
And now, sit back and enjoy the ambience and great acoustics of the art gallery with a fabulous musical performance.
Good evening everyone, my name is Melissa Hollick and I'm a vintage singer from Warwickshire. I'm going to be singing a mixture of songs for you today from the 1950s, 60s and 70s, so please feel free to sing along at home. Going to start off with a lovely one, perfect for Halloween. This is called Spooky by Dusty Springfield and it's from the mid-1960s. little game that you are playing. I'm gonna tell you all the things my heart's been dying to say. Just like a ghost, you've been a hole in my dreams, but now I know you're not what you seem. Love is kind of crazy with a spooky little boy like you. A bit of rock and roll for you all now. This is Bill Haley's Rock Around the Clock from the 1950s. 1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, rock. 5, 6, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, rock. 9, 10, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, rock. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight. Put your left bags on, join me, hon. We'll have some fun when the clock strikes. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight. We're gonna rock, rock, rock. Broad daylight, we're gonna rock around the clock tonight. When the clock strikes 2, 3 and 4, the band slows down and we all come more. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight. We're gonna rock. Broad daylight, we're gonna rock around the clock tonight. When the chimes ring 5, 6 and 7, we'll be riding 7th heaven. Rock around the clock tonight. We're gonna rock. The broad daylight, we're gonna rock around the clock tonight. When it's 3, 9, 10, 11, 2, we're going strong and so here. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight. We're gonna rock. The broad daylight, we're gonna rock around the clock tonight. When the clock strikes 12, our band starts rocking around the clock again. We're gonna rock around the clock tonight. We're gonna rock. The broad daylight, we're gonna rock around the clock tonight. There's one by the lovely Doris Day called Que Sera, Sera. When I was just a little girl, I asked my mother, what will I be? Will I be pretty? Will I be rich? Here's what she said to me. Que sera, sera. Whatever will be, will be. The future's not ours to see. Que sera, sera. What will be, will be. When I grew up and fell in love, I asked my sweetheart, what lies ahead? Will we have rainbows day after day? Here's what my sweetheart said. Que sera, sera. Whatever will be, will be. The future's not ours to see. Que sera, sera.
what will be, will be. Que sera, sera.
Ready for cocktail number 2? Here's the ingredients list.
Hello, my name is Lee, and today I'll be going through a zombie cocktail. First thing we'll do is chill the glass and start adding our booze. Now this is a very strong drink. The classic version actually had about 8 shots of alcohol in it. We're going to take that back a bit today and just use about 6. Starting off with 20 ml of our white rum, Bacardi, followed by another 20 ml of a aged rum. Today we're using East London Demerara. Following up with a splash of overproof rum, we have Wray & Nephew, which is actually quite a strong rum. We're only adding about 5 ml of that just because it does tend to take over a lot of drinks that it is added into. Next up we have Velvet Verlernen, which is a clove-based liqueur. We're going to add 20 ml of that into our drink. Now to balance everything out, we're going to add freshly squeezed grapefruit juice, 10 ml, 20 ml of fresh lime juice, 30 ml of fresh pineapple juice, and then just a touch of our house-made cinnamon syrup. That will add a nice earthy back note to the drink, which will help complement all of those nice sweet rum flavours. We'll then add cubed ice to our mixing bowl to the top and shake over ice for about 20 or so seconds. I'll just taste this to make sure everything's incorporated and that the balance is there. Very good. I'm going to add just a touch more cinnamon syrup, making that 10 ml. Quickly incorporate that. And then as this is served over ice, I'll add ice to the glass. Single strain over the ice. And then as always, garnished in your preferred method. I like to keep things quite simple with a zombie. So I'm just going to add a dehydrated lime wheel and serve. And there you have it. There is the very strong zombie cocktail.
We're now joining Suz Winspear for a performance inspired by our Victorian chemist shop.
Oh, hello, I didn't notice you were in here. Yes, oh, come on in. I'm just making remedies here. You know, nice remedies for all the various things that are going round. You've got some nice tonics here. We've got Belladonna's Deadly Nightshade. It's a really good tonic. Plenty of aconite, of course. Oh, and strychnine. Yeah, great little pick-me-up. So, yeah, yes, I'm just making nice healing remedies. It's all good. I'm not sort of intending to put anything in someone's tea. Whoops. You didn't see that, did you? Well, you know, being in here, it reminds me of a story. You see, if you were living in Victorian Worcestershire, not everybody could afford to go to a proper doctor or to come up to a nice pharmacy like this. In fact, if you'd been living in Victorian Kidderminster and hadn't been able to come to a shop like this, and you've been feeling unwell, you might well have gone to see Becky Swan. Now, Becky Swan was quite a character around Kidderminster back in those days. You probably have seen her going around the street, an old woman hunched over. She always seemed to be muttering to herself and looking down at the pavement. And occasionally she'd bend down, pick up a weed, stuff it in her bag, and she'd go all round Kidderminster picking up these weeds and things. And you might have thought she was a bit peculiar. But then she would go home to her little house at a ramshackle, run-down little place on Worcester Street. And she'd go into the big kitchen. There was a large fire at one end, a long table down the middle, a window up there, and herbs hanging down. Because Becky Swan knew everything there was to know about herbs and making herbal remedies. And all the local women, this was a tough working class neighbourhood, they knew that they could come and see Becky Swan and she would give them something to cure whatever the matter was. They could come round any time, day or night, bring their children round, come and consult with Becky Swan, and she'd mix them up some powders, or she'd blend some little liquid in an old teacup, which they'd drink. And it worked. It worked better than if they'd been able to afford to go to the posh doctors or come to the pharmacy. Becky Swan was a bit of a genius when it came to herbs. And she had other talents as well. You know, if any of those local women were wondering, you know, if their husbands might be playing around with someone else, they'd go to Becky Swan, take their wedding ring off, and Becky Swan would hang it on a little thread, and it would see it moving around. It went clockwise, anti-clockwise, backwards, forwards, and she could tell them what their husbands had been up to. So, Becky Swan was very popular with the local women, not quite so popular with their husbands, but she had a place in the community. And if any of the kids came out and started making fun of her and calling her names, the women would go out there and pull up their sleeves and go charging down and give them a clip round the ear hole. Becky Swan was a witch, but she was their witch. And it continued thus for many years, until one day, in 1850, something very strange happened. A cat came into Kidderminster. Not any cat. This was the biggest cat anybody had ever seen. Shining jet black. Its eyes were blue, as pale as ice, and it was a strange looking cat. And the people all stood back when it walked past through the streets of Kidderminster, and the dogs all shrank away. Even the biggest, fiercest of the dogs, even the mastiff that the rent collector took round with him. The mastiff put his tail between his legs and shrank under the table and whimpered at the sight of this cat. And the cat came prowling down Worcester Street, up to the front door of Becky Swan's little house, reached out its claws. Scratch! 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 3 times on the door, leaving deep indentations in the wood. And Becky Swan opened the door. She saw the cat and turned pale. "I knew you'd come eventually," she said, held the door aside to let the cat in, closed the door and locked it behind them. Now, no one quite knew what was going on in that house with Becky Swan and the cat. Occasionally the cat would be seen, just walking up and down Worcester Street, making everyone know that it was still there. But otherwise, nothing was heard of Becky Swan. You know, the neighbours were going round looking for remedies. There was even a mother whose kid had measles, was thundering on the door of Becky Swan's house. But there was absolutely no response. No sign of Becky Swan whatsoever. But then, on the 3rd day, in the morning, there was the most terrible smell coming out, suffusing the whole atmosphere around that little house. And it was the most horrible smell. Someone said it was a bit like the smell you have round the back of the hospital when they were burning the infected blankets. So it was that sort of smell. And the local women were getting very worried by now. And they sort of told their husbands, "You go and break that door down." So the men all went, charged on, banged the door down, knocked it down. And there was Becky Swan's kitchen, with a big fireplace, the long wooden table, the herbs hanging up, and that peculiar smell. And there was the cat, just sitting quietly on the floor, paws out, looking down, and in front of it was a heap of ash in the shape of a human body, a heap of ash in the shape of Becky's swan. And the cat just stood up, quietly walked away, walked out of Kidderminster, and was never seen again. And as for what went on, well, even to this day, that remains a mystery. I think we need a bit more strychnine in that. A bit more strychnine.
Thank you for joining us at Museum After Hours. We hope you've had a most wonderful evening, and we look forward to seeing you again very soon. In the meantime, it's cheers from me.